Hi everyone, in this video we're going to look at the next two voting methods, which are plurality with elimination method and the pairwise comparison method. In the previous video for 14.1 we looked at two other voting methods, which were plurality and then the board account method. So let's take a look at plurality with elimination here. This method involves a series of elections. And basically, when you're using this method, each voter votes for only one candidate. If the candidate receives a majority of the votes, so remember, majority means more than 50% or more than half, the candidate is declared the winner. If no candidate receives a majority, what we do is we eliminate the candidate with the fewest votes and then hold another election. Okay. If there's a tie for the fewest votes, you eliminate all candidates tied for the fewest votes. And then we repeat the process until a candidate receives a majority. Okay. One way to limit the number of elections is to begin with what's called a runoff election, where you choose among a field of candidates, and then in the second election, the voters select only among the top two from the runoff election. Okay. Another way to avoid multiple elections entirely is to have voters rank candidates from most to least favorable, just like we did with the board account method. All right, so let's look at the zoo logo problem again, and here's the preference table. This time we're going to figure out which animal is selected using the plurality with elimination method, okay? So we're going to keep in mind here that if we add up the number of votes, we get 15. So in order for us to have a majority, we want to keep in mind that a majority would have to be 8 or more, okay? Or think of it as greater than 7, because 7.5 is 50% of 15, but we can't have 7.5 voters. So majority would be 8 or more. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind. You could also just say more than 7. All right, so we're going to hold our first round of voting here. And in the first round, we're going to count the number of first place votes. So we actually already have that from when we did the plurality method. So right here, we're basically copying this down below. Okay, so keep that in mind. So I'm just going to rewrite those. So tiger was 5 first place votes, and then we had the giraffe, which was 6, and the kangaroo was 4 first place votes. Now, we need 8 or more. We don't have that. So what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate the lowest number of first place votes. That would be the kangaroo. So we're just going to cross that out. And then we're going to hold another election. So round 2, okay? And if you think of it like this, before I go and do round 2, in the preference table, you can cross out all the Ks. And what's happening is everything in certain columns is going to shift. So now there's no longer first, second, and third. It's just first and second, right? So giraffe is going to move up to here. And giraffe would move here, and tiger would move there. Tiger would move here, and giraffe would move there. And then tiger is going to move to there, okay? So if it's hard to visualize that, if you want, you can rewrite the preference table, and it's going to look something like this. It's going to be T and G, right? And keep in mind you got first and second place. And then this is T and G. This is GT. This is going to be GT, TG, and then GT. Okay, so this is your new preference table. All right, now we're going to hold a second round. And this time we only have 2 of the animals to calculate. So tiger, we're going to look at how many first place votes we have. 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 3 is 8. So the tiger has 8 first place votes, and I already know that that is a majority, right? But we can also look at the giraffe. The giraffe would be 5 plus 1 plus 1, or 7. So since the tiger has the majority, the tiger is the winner. Because it won the majority, which again, remember, is more than 50% of the votes. So if you're thinking about the animals that have won the election, when we did the plurality method, we got the giraffe as the winner. And when we did the Borda count method and this plurality with elimination, we got that the tiger is the winner for both of those. So we still got, different answers for plurality compared to the other 2. You can pause the video now and try doing the plurality with elimination method on your own here with the student government problem. Okay, the 4th method we're going to look at for voting is called the pairwise comparison method. Okay, so pair means 2, and comparison, you're comparing. So you're comparing 2 of the candidates, if you want to call it that, at a time. Okay, and what's going to happen is we're going to rank them, and whoever the winner is among the pair, they're going to win 1 point. If there's a tie, each of the candidates will receive a half a point, and then the candidate that obtains the most points in the 1-to-1 comparison is declared a winner. Okay, so here I have, with this zoo problem, I've got my 3 candidates, right, if you will, they're animals, and I have to compare each of them in pairs. So I'm going to start with the tiger, right, and I'm going to have the tiger versus one of the other animals. Let's go with the kangaroo. Okay, then I have to compare the tiger and the giraffe. Okay, and there's still one more comparison to be made. I haven't compared the kangaroo and the giraffe, so I got to do that. And I'm going to use my preference table now, okay? And I'm going to figure out how many first place votes for just the tiger and just the kangaroo. So if I look at the tiger, first place votes, I've got 2 plus 3. So that would give me 5. And here I've got, let's see. Here's another place where it goes tiger. So what you should do is when you're looking at this is an easier way to look at it. Look at all the columns and look at where it goes tiger and then kangaroo, okay? So here, that's going to be 2. And then here it's tiger and then kangaroo. So that's going to be plus 3. Here it's tiger and kangaroo. So that's going to be plus 5. And then here it's kangaroo and then tiger. Okay, so I don't have to worry about that. Kangaroo and tiger, kangaroo and tiger. So here, for tiger and kangaroo, I'm going to have 2 plus 3 plus 5. So that gives me 6 plus 5 or 11. Okay. And then an easy way to do this is we know that there's 15 votes total. So if 11 of them went to the tiger, 15 minus 11 would give me 4 points for the kangaroo. And if you look at the columns here that it should be, that's actually 10. So then that should be 5. 15 minus 10. And if you add up the points, 1 plus 3 plus 1, you get 5. Okay. But overall here, who won? It would be the tiger, right? So that means that the tiger is awarded 1 point. For the tiger and the giraffe now, I'm going to kind of do the same thing. So I'm looking at the columns and I'm trying to find tiger and giraffe. So here the tiger and then the giraffe. Here's tiger, giraffe, and here's tiger, giraffe. So those columns would be 2 plus 3 plus 3. And that gives me 8. And then 15 minus 8 is 7. Okay, so here, again, the tiger had the most number of points, so the tiger is awarded 1 point. And then last but not least, I'm looking at the kangaroo versus the giraffe. Okay, so I want kangaroo and then giraffe. So K and then G, K and G, K and G, and I'm going to add up those points. So here I got 2 plus 1 plus 3, so that gives me 6 for the kangaroo, and then 15 minus 6 gives me 9 for the giraffe. So here the giraffe won, and the giraffe was awarded a point. So now what I do is I go through and figure out how many total points for each of the animals, right? So overall, we have the tiger, the giraffe, and the kangaroo. And the tiger, you can see, won 1 point plus 1 point, so they got 2 points. The giraffe has 1 point, and the kangaroo didn't get any points. So overall, that means that the tiger is the winner. So in all but the plurality method, the original voting method we used, the tiger won, right? But in that first method, the giraffe won. So it's interesting here that, the giraffe didn't win in 3 of the methods. Now, if you're trying to figure out how many pairwise comparisons you would need to do, there is a formula that you can use, and it's n times n minus 1 over 2. Okay, and n stands for the number of candidates. So we would say like the animals here are the candidates. So it's just basically anything that's in the election that you're voting for. So the reason that I had 3 different pairwise comparisons is because there were 3 animals or candidates, and then I'm going to do 3 times 3 minus 1 over 2. And I know 3 minus 1 is just 2. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 over 2 is 3. So that's how I got 3 pairwise comparisons. When you're doing this problem here, the student government problem, now you have 4 people. So to figure out the number of comparisons, I'm going to just remember that n is 4. So to get the number of comparisons, it's going to be 4 times 4 minus 1 over 2. Okay, and when you simplify that, that's going to tell you how many comparisons you would need. So after looking at those voting methods, one of the things we need to think about, because it could happen, is that you could get a tie. So how do we break the tie? What I would like you to do is to pause the video and read this problem, the tie breaking, to yourself, like what we do in the case of a tie. And then we're actually going to do an example, and we will look at how that's determined. So after having read that, one of the important things that we want to remember is that we want to remain fair. So as we stated earlier, in addition to not only picking the voting method before you hold the election, you also want to pick the tie-breaking method. Because if you don't pick the tie-breaking method beforehand, let's say, this candidate won and you weren't really a fan, and you wanted the other person to win, you could come up with a way to break the tie, but it would favor the other person, and that's not fair. So in both instances, you want to make sure you pick the voting method and the tie-breaking method in advance. Okay, so here's an example. The University of Central Florida, SGA, is trying to decide whom to invite as the keynote speaker for commencement exercises. The choices are Oprah Winfrey, Rene Descartes, and Cristiano Ronaldo. To make this difficult decision, the SGA decides that the plurality method will be used to determine the winner, and that the board account method will be used to decide the winner in the event that the plurality method leads to a tie. The results of the election are shown in the table there. Okay, so that's our preference table. So now we want to figure out who will be asked to speak at the UCF commencement ceremony. Okay, so let's take a look first at our candidates here. Okay, so the first thing we've got Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, and how many first place votes did Cristiano get? So if you look at the first line there, he got 400 first place votes. Okay, next I'm going to go with Oprah. Okay, and looking at the first line, we see Oprah got 250 plus 150, or 400 votes as well. And we can also see that Rene Descartes, poor Rene, he didn't get any first place votes. So there's actually a tie here between Cristiano and Oprah. Okay, so we just used the plurality method, but because there's a tie, we had determined before the election that we would use the board account method. So remember, the board account method involves ranking and then quantifying by assigning points to the ranks. Okay, so here's our tiebreaker. We're going to first take Cristiano, okay, and remember that he has 400 first place votes, so we're going to multiply that by 3 because there's 3 different candidates, 3 different rankings, first, second, or third. And if we take a look at the second line, right, Cristiano got 150 second place votes, so we're going to take 150 and multiply that by 2. And then we're going to take how many third place votes he got, which was 250, and we're going to multiply that by 1. And when you multiply 400 times 3 plus 150 times 2 plus 250 times 1, it gives you 1,750 points. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with Oprah Winfrey. So looking at Oprah, she had 400 first place votes. In the second line, she didn't get any second place votes, and she got 400 first place votes. So if you multiply 400 times 3 plus 0 times 2 plus 400 times 1, you get 1,600 points. So using the board account method, we can see that Cristiano won and will be the speaker at the commencement. Okay, so let me just shrink this a little bit so I can fit it there. And then I'll highlight this. Okay, and therefore, Cristiano Ronaldo is the commencement speaker. There's a brief summary there of the 4 different voting methods, which I don't want you to get confused with the next section, which is all about the flaws of the voting method. So we're going to look at how each voting method may have a particular flaw. So try not to confuse those, because there's 4 methods that we're going to look at to determine whether or not the voting method that we chose was fair. Okay. Before we go on to that video, though, please try this next problem. This is a review of the 4 voting methods, so this will give you some practice as to how we find the winners using each of the voting methods. All right, hope you all have a great rest of your day.